This is a special edition of AU Talks, and we are coming to you from the University of Ibadan, and that is Nigeria's premier university. This morning, we'll be talking to the Vice Chancellor of the university, purposefully to find out the relationship between PASGA and the University of Ibadan, and also look at some key issues in higher education in Nigeria and specifically the University of Ibadan. Don't forget that you can join the conversation via our social media platforms and also on our TV website, tv.au.org. My name is Kwesi Sam. I'll go for a short break, and when I return, I will let you know who my guest is for this session. Stay tuned. Welcome back from the break. If you just tuned in, you are still watching AU Television, and we are coming your way from the University of Ibadan. And like I said, it is Nigeria's premier university. And this morning, we'll be speaking to the Vice Chancellor of the university, Professor Abel Idowu Olayinka. And we want to find out the relationship between PASGA and the university, and as well as some key interventions in higher education as well. Don't forget that this is brought to you by the AAU Television. Prof, you're welcome to AAU Television.
Yeah, good morning. It's a pleasure welcoming you to the Vice Chancellor's office.
Great. And special greetings from Professor Etienne Hele, the Secretary General of the AAU.
Oh, my
as well.
Kind regards to him too.
Great. And we are privileged to speak to you based, we know you have a very busy schedule today, looking at your itinerary. But we are so grateful that you could grant us this beautiful time.
Yeah, it's a pleasure for me to receive you. I think we have to do our job in spite of
Absolutely.
other competing demands on our time.
Absolutely. So how does it feel like being a Vice Chancellor of Nigeria's premier university, University of Ibadan, a world-class university as well?
For me, it's a privilege. As you can see, I was a student here as an undergraduate. I came here 42 years ago as an undergraduate.
Oh.
Then I finished my first degree. I went to England for my master's and PhD. Then on the next available flight, I returned to Nigeria to pick up a job as a lecturer, grade 2. Rose through the ranks. So 20 years ago, I became professor. And in the course of that, I've been head of department, I've been dean of the graduate school, I've been a deputy vice chancellor. So it was just an opportunity for me to become a vice chancellor almost 4 years ago. Actually, 4 years ago that I was appointed, I think 9th of September 2015. Even though I resumed 1st of December of that year.
Okay.
So it's a privilege
for
me to be the Vice Chancellor of an institution where I was at the time even a student. So it's a privilege.
Great. So looking at every university is set up for a specific mandate. And so what is the niche of the University of Ibadan? Why do you think a lot of students would want to be part of this heritage, of this academic excellence that you provide here?
Well, as you are probably aware, the University of Ibadan is the oldest in the country, established actually 72 years ago, because the first set of students resumed January 18, 1948, even though we now use November of every year as our Founders Day. But the reality is that students came here January 18, 1948, so almost 72 years to the date. And for the next 12 years, there was no university institution in Nigeria. Yeah, until maybe 1960 or thereabouts, when University of Nigeria, Nsukka, was established. Even at that, it was established by the Eastern Regional Government, whereas Ibadan was established by the colonial masters as the only university in Nigeria. So over the years, we have had the mandate to be like a postgraduate university for Nigeria. So we concentrate more on postgraduate studies. As far back as 1976, university had been declared as a center of excellence for postgraduate training and research. So we think that is the niche that we have for ourselves. Because when people ask me whether your university, I mean, granted that it's the oldest in the country, it's the biggest. I say we are not, by any style, we are not the biggest. So we think we are concentrating more on postgraduate studies. With the Executive Secretary of the National Universities Commission was here last week, Tuesday, for the conference of Association of Vice Chancellors of Nigerian Universities. I mean, read out the statistics. So say University of Ibadan is still the largest producer of PhDs in the country, at least. So we are concentrating more on postgraduate studies. And you know, at the last count, Nigeria now has 174 universities. So federal, state, and private. Most of them are private. Even though in terms of enrollment, the private universities account for just a small cohort, just about 6% of the total enrollment applied to the private universities. So all of them, they are going to need people with terminal degrees, PhD, for this purpose. So we think we have an advantage. And also because of the reputation and brand that the university has been able to build over the last 72 years. Of course, there's always room for more improvement. So, but I think we are satisfied with the humble achievements that the university has been able to achieve over the last 72 years.
Great. So I'm so much interested in knowing the brand, especially the impact that this university has been to the entire country. What will you share with us in terms of the impact of this university?
Yeah, I think the impact of the university is unquantifiable. I mean, we have a slogan to the effect that our people, our pride. I mean, just this morning, I mean, I was checking my email. One of our professors in the Department of Psychiatry was cited among the most published researchers in the world.
Oh, great.
Professor Oyegureje. He has a Doctor of Science from this university. So because we cannot talk in terms of abstract matters, and the best way you can measure whether a university is doing very well is what are the graduates doing. So, I mean, when you do look at the factors of production, land, labor, capital, and all that, the human element is always very critical. I mean, like recently, our colleagues in the medical discipline, they were trying to establish a Nigerian Academy of Medicine. So 97 people were given a fellowship to form the foundation of that Academy of Medicine. It turned out about 21 or 22 of them are on our staff, or they have retired, so that have strong affiliation to the University of Ibadan. So if out of 97, almost 20% are from University of Ibadan. So no one needs to push it to say that, okay, we are really doing what we are supposed to do. And I mean, if you also imagine that Nigeria has only had one Nobel laureate in literature. I mean, he started his university career here. So you can, I mean, diverse disciplines. So we think we are doing very well. Of course, the mandate of any university, at least in the 21st century, has to do with teaching. You have to teach your students. Then your faculty, they have to do research. Then you should also be relevant to the immediate environment, the country, then the world at large. Because our graduates are supposed to go to any part of the world and still make an impact. Even on Monday this week now, 7 of our colleagues or groups of researchers, they were given patents. So we just presented it to them at a public ceremony just 5 days ago, Monday this week. Yeah, so this, I mean, because you are talking of teaching, to teach the students, then your faculty to do research. Of course, your students are also to be expected to be involved in research. Then innovation, because the search for knowledge in the 21st century is not just knowledge for knowledge's sake. Then you have to, it has to be to the benefit of the society. And for us, as an institution that is funded by taxpayers' money, so we need to be relevant to our immediate environment, whether it's urbanization, transportation, HIV/AIDS, or whatever it is, food production, food security, almost in any field of human endeavor. So we have to make efforts in spite of our challenges, the environment in which we operate. So we think we are doing the right thing, but there is, like I mentioned a short while ago, that there is room for improvement. So by and large, we think we have an idea of the trajectory, where what the vision. I mean, we want to be a world-class institution for academic excellence, then geared towards meeting societal needs. So it has to be relevant. It's not just enough for our researchers to publish in the high-impact journals, but how relevant are we to the Ibadan community Oyo State? You know, Nigeria operates a federal system, 36 states. So we should be relevant to the Oyo State, then the remaining 36 states plus the federal capital, then by extension the rest of the world. Because some of our graduates, the reality is that when they finish here, they probably emigrate to America, and, Europe or Asia, but we cannot stop them. But they will always remember that the foundation were laid at the University of Ibadan.
Great.
So, and they remain, for that purpose, they remain eternally grateful. to the system.
Okay. So, Prof, let's look at the faculty that you have, the schools department. How many faculties do we have in this university?
I think we have 17 faculties now.
Okay.
Used to be like 13. Then the faculty of agriculture and forestry was split into two. So we have faculty of agriculture, then faculty of renewable natural resources. Then we have a faculty of environmental design and management. I mean, among the new ones.
Okay.
Then we also have the old department of economics. It's now like a faculty,
Okay.
school of economics,
Okay.
that has faculty status. So they're going to be running accounting program, banking and finance, marketing and consumer studies. So that makes, I think 16th. It should be the 16th. There used to be 13 before. Then we have 3 additional faculties in the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay. So, Prof, if we are to map out the relationship between the faculty and then also the field of work or the industry that we have in Nigeria, can we say that there is that kind of relevance? For example, if we look at the entire resources, natural resources of Nigeria, can we say that the faculties that we have here directly respond to the actual resources that we have, respond to the need of the federal
Yeah, I think in terms of the synergy that one will spend between government, industry, and academia, I think the 3 legs of the tripod,
yes.
In terms of the triple helix, maybe we have not done enough. I mean, it's the entire ecosystem. It's not just the fault of the university or that of government. Or, I mean, because we were in Abuja 2-3 days ago, we were still discussing this, to the fact that most of the major private sector operators in Nigeria, they are multinationals. So they don't do much of research in Nigeria.
Exactly.
They rather go to their home country, which is, I mean, if you have a Dangote industry, for example, Dangote is an indigenous company. So the tendency for Dangote, I mean, as a group now, to want to do research in Nigeria is much higher than if you have a company based in The Hague, another one based in Texas, and Houston, Texas, and all that. So I think I see a missing link. We can still do more. And we also think that for our researchers, staff and students to be more relevant, we don't necessarily have to focus on the big multinationals. We can look at the medium and small scale industries where we can make impact, because they are the engine of growth in any economy. So maybe those are the areas of, like in the Chamber of Commerce, we need to engage them. I mean, it's not until we move to MTN or Shell, Petroleum or ExxonMobil before we can make our impact felt. So because most of those companies don't do most of their research in country. But I think in spite of that, we should still engage them. And perhaps also more relate more with the medium and small scale enterprises.
Great.
And I'm sure there are hundreds of thousands of them all over the country.
Great. Prof, let's also look at the student population vis-a-vis the academic staff that the university has. Do you think it's well balanced? Do we have more student, when we look at the student-lecturer ratio?
Yeah, the student-lecturer ratio is respectable.
Okay.
But I would love it to be better. You know, I came on board like almost 4 years ago. People were, I mean, well-meaning people were encouraging me that we should be running pre-degree programs.
Okay.
And I said, unless I want to kill the members of the academic staff. I mean, they teach regular students, they teach masters, they teach PhD. We also have a distance learning program. The same person is engaged in all these matters. And indeed, there is a report that was brought to my notice a few days ago, where they said some universities in Africa are showing a lot of promise. They mentioned WITS in Joburg, University of Cape Town, Ibadan was there, Covenant in Ogun State, and one university, I think, in Egypt. And you see, it's not just, I mean, the author of that article was trying to give reasons why those universities are improving, maybe on their branding, or if you like, on their ranking, on various ranking body, whether it's Times Higher Education or academic ranking of world universities. And you know, it struck me that he said that at University of Ibadan, that we have been able to reduce our admission to a manageable size, to 4,000. And it's true that every year, in fact, you know, they are doing screening exams today. Some did their own yesterday. So for the 2 days, yesterday and today, we probably will be thinking about 22,000 candidates who had applied to University of Ibadan for a first degree in various programs, like I told you, about 16 of those disciplines. But the reality is that maybe out of the 22,000, let's say about 11,000, we meet our minimum entry requirement. But at the end of the day, we probably admit just about 3,500. So people already know that it's very competitive to enter this place. And for me, my greatest joy is that I know that the quality of our students here. It's about the best you can have in the West African sub-region. I too was a student here at the time. At times I asked myself, if the standard were to be this high when I was applying to the university, would I have been able to secure admission? Because it's very cheap for people to say that the quality of education is falling. The question is, who set the standard and what's the benchmark? People will always tell you that the standard of education started dropping the year after they graduated from the university, not before, not during their hostel. It started dropping the year after they finished. I mean, there is room for improvement. And for us, I think we have about maybe 1,500 academic staff, 1,500 academic staff for total student population of about 30,000 undergraduate, postgraduate. So because we know that it's massification.
Without the distance.
Without the distance learning, distance learning, they are not part of these statistics. So we think we are conscious of that. So the metrics, because you have to, if you cannot measure it, then you cannot manage it. Otherwise, there is a sister university that admits like almost 14,000 students in a year. So in 4 years, we are talking of 60,000 students, which would just be like double our own student population. That was how I said, for us, we are not in the race for which one is the biggest university in Nigeria. Because I look at Oxford, Cambridge, they just have 19,000. Harvard is about 19,000. In fact, there's even no room for them to expand. I mean, they are so choked in Boston there. So I mean, why they are reckoned with all over the world. So you have to make up your mind whether you want to be doing the popular something that you are the most, you have the most students. Then because even you look at the indices, access is important. Many students now trying to go to the university. So why not? If I have a 17-year-old son or daughter, I mean, I would naturally like him or her to go to the university. But of course, there has to also be differentiation. It's not everyone that will be able to come to Ibadan. So the reason why there are some other 171 or 173 other universities that they can apply to. And when students are, we have the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board. When students are applying for admission to higher institutions, polytechnics, universities, and colleges of education, like for the universities, Ibadan is one of the only 5 universities in Nigeria that insists that the candidates must have scored at least 50% before we can even consider them at all. It's not as if the 50% will automatically
grant them admission.
But you must score that. It's only Ibadan, Ife. That's Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, University of Lagos, University of Benin, and University of Nigeria, Nsukka. Those are the only 5 out of the 173 universities that we have in the country. So that's, whether you like it or not, that's a measure of standard. Because I believe that if the quality of students that you are bringing is very high, I mean, it's input, process, and output. So if the input is very weak, then you can still make something out of them, but you have to work extra hard. So for us, we are conscious of that. The input must be very good. Then we try our best as part of the process. Then we can then close our eyes to know that the output will be quite respectable.
Great. So Prof, we'll go for a short break, and when we return, we'll be looking at the impact of PASCA on the University of Ibadan. Has the relationship been very fruitful? Has it improved teaching, learning, and research in the university as well? You are still watching AU television, and this is a special edition of AU Talks brought to you by the AU, and we are coming to you live from the office of the Vice Chancellor of the University of Ibadan. Stay tuned. We'll go for a short break. Stay with us if you can.
You may not have heard about us, but we have heard about you. You've been searching for a new kind of university that matches your ambition. Our world-class education is renowned, but there is more to us. Meet the university in Ghana that is transforming Africa. One that is nurturing a new generation of ethical, entrepreneurial leaders. One that offers scholarships thanks to the Massacre Foundation, so that you can be part of our community of students who stand for integrity, discipline, and excellence. There is only one such university, only one, where 100% of graduates receive job offers or graduate school admissions. You may not have heard about us, but we have heard about you. You are Africa's future, and we are Ashesi University College. Together, we can begin to create a new Africa.
Welcome back from the break. If you just tuned in, you are still watching a special edition of AU Talks brought to you by the AU Television. And like I said, we are coming to you from the Nigeria's premier university, University of Ibadan. And we are speaking to the Vice Chancellor, Professor Olayinka, this morning. So, Prof, let us look at the impact, the relationship that you have with PASCA in terms of teaching, in terms of learning, in terms of research. What has been the journey so far?
Thank you. I think the intervention of PASGA at the University of Ibadan has been God sent. Because, like I said, I was an undergraduate here. Because you cannot give what you do not have.
Exactly.
So one looks at the benefit of hindsight. So what have we been doing here for the past 72 years? Of course, long before I even ventured to be an undergraduate. Then the short period that I was here, 4 years, then later coming back as a member of the faculty. You know, there are certain things that we have been doing here for 72 years that are best practice. Then there are some other ones that are, suboptimal. So, and you would like to change things around. And the time that we now, the PASGA intervention came, has been so salutary, the effect. From my own assessment, at the vantage position that I occupy as the Vice Chancellor. For once, we think that developments in IT was not there when I was an undergraduate. I never saw a computer here as an undergraduate, talk less of using one. But when you now look at the millennials, the Z generations, things have really moved. Even their cell phone, as we are teaching them in class, they just Google something. In fact, I was at a workshop in Abuja during the week, and I was asking that, do you know that there is a Silicon Valley in Nigeria? The resource person was asking us. So the ladies that sat next to me was just Google it. And he said, okay, it's in Yaba, in Lagos. And YabaCon, they call it. So, and to that extent, the lecturer, the senior lecturer or the professor, is no longer the sage on the stage. It's just a guide by the side. Exactly. In fact, they are inviting me for a lecture. I'm not in biological sciences. So I was trying to go and check something on what are the problems with inbreeding. I just type inbreeding and genetic diversity. So I saw 1,001 pages. So a student can also do that.
Do the same.
And so you can do the same, or even better than me. So the thing is that the way we look at teaching has really moved drastically. I've just given one aspect of it, that you have to leverage on the IT, which our students are even more versatile in than us. They are IT natives, while we are IT immigrants. And because, all those born in the last 34, 35 years. And so you find out that there is a gap between the students and the faculty or the lecturers. So, and also, that's the way you teach students. You have to leverage on IT. And the professor is no longer the one that has a monopoly of knowledge. And you can just guide them to say, okay, go and check this. They can even go and check on their own. Then even the way we assess students. When I was here as an undergraduate, a professor of mine told me that no student can score A in his course. So we think that is unacceptable in the 21st century. So things are moving. It has happened to me before. The professor told me that no student can score A in his course. Let's assume that only maybe about 10% of our faculty were of that mindset 40 years ago. The idea is that maybe you will reduce it to 0.05%. It will not happen overnight, it's a process. So I think the mindset of the faculty is important. And I think with the PASGA initiative, we have had a number of workshops here at our faculty. They've been to Nairobi, to Accra, and other places. Some even went to Uganda recently. And I think there's an ongoing workshop at IITA. So I think the more of our people that are able to, that have that exposure in terms of the best practices, if anything, it makes our job even a lot easier. Like when I was an undergraduate here, continual assessment was a rarity. It was just few and far between. But now, in fact, there's even a regulation to that effect by the National Universities Commission to say that continual assessment should be like 40% of the final score. So, and I think if we look at it, it makes students to be on their toes throughout the semester. And I think that is one of the major advantages of the American system. So the typical undergraduate in America, in the university in America, from day one of the semester is serious. They have assignments, they have throughout the semester, they tell you they are busy. They have term paper, they have take-home assignments. So things are changing. And the earlier we change with, the best practices, the better. And I think that was why I said the PASGA intervention at the University of Ibadan is really God-sent. And PASGA will not do everything for us. But at least if the faculty members that are participating at different categories, whether it's senior lecturer, middle level, and even the junior ones, they can also have cascade training at university level at each faculty and department, so that more and more of our lecturers, our academics can imbibe the spirit. Because the idea is that we want to run a student-centered teaching and learning.
Great.
And so if we are here to bring out the best in our students. And because, like I mentioned, it's the best way you can measure how good a university is. What are the graduates doing when they finish? So if we prepare our students better for the world of work, I mean, by the experience I will have gathered, whether it's an entrepreneurship, critical thinking, and all that, I think all these are part of what PASGA is bringing on board, especially under pedal. I mean, we have been doing this thing in bits and bits before, but I think with this one now, it's going to catalyze it. So that's why we think we also have to put in the best, I mean, in spite of our limitations in terms of resources, to key into the intervention from PASGA.
Great. So if PASGA should do things differently in terms of its program interventions to University of Ibadan, through research, through the PDT interventions, and also through the pedal that we already know, what are the key things that you would suggest to PASGA?
Well, you know, maybe it's too early in the day to start making recommendations as to what they need to do differently. But for now, I think we are satisfied with the intervention, and we know they are not going to solve all our problems for us. Without them, the university will still have been in existence. But we think it's the best way to go, such that by the time the PASGA, the project comes to an end, we'll be able to have a sustainable way of mainstreaming it into what we are doing, such that 5 years, 10 years down the line, this will be part and parcel of the teaching and learning process at the University of Ibadan. Okay.
Then let's move finally to the employability of our graduates, and which has been one of the greatest bone under contention. Every industry player keeps bashing universities that we are churning out graduates who are not employable. How employable are the graduates of University of Ibadan?
Yeah, well,
in the space of Nigeria and beyond.
Yes, I think there has been a need assessment that was carried out by the National Universities Commission almost 15 years ago to look at this issue of employability. I think I have a copy of the report. Then Professor Kibukula was the Executive Secretary of NUC.
Okay.
And one of the major findings of that need assessment was to the fact that graduates from the Nigerian university system, generally, that they have problem with communication.
Okay.
So somebody goes to an interview, even the little he knew, he was not able to express himself, or was intimidated by all the grade he had people on the interview panel. So it may not be so much about content, but in spite of that, we still need to regularly look at our curriculum to review them and modify them. Yeah, a curriculum for this purpose will not just be a set of instructions. How do we even pass the information around? And the point has been made over and over that what you are teaching graduates today, or other graduates, you don't even know what is the kind of employment you are going to prepare them for in the next 4 or 5 years. So to that extent, there can be, maybe we need to strengthen the generic training that if you are in mathematics, it's not so much about mathematics now, but critical thinking is very important. Critical thinking, our communication skills, how to even attend interviews, you know, interpersonal skills. I mean, the soft skills now generally, they are important. Apart from you are in algebraic K theory or whatever. Your subject, I mean, that is the technical, but also the soft aspect is very important. I think those are things that we need to concentrate on. And of course, it's also related to the question you asked about the staff-student ratio.
Exactly.
If you have a lecturer standing in front of 2,000 students, it's not going to be meaningful.
Okay.
So because there are certain lessons that students need to take out of the classroom beyond just passing exams. Well, passing exams is important, but it's not the only thing the only reason why students are here.
All right. So, Prof, let's look at the university as a whole in terms of faculty, students, infrastructure, everything. Which area is your major focus, and what do you want to improve before your term of office ends?
Yeah, well, of course, we always need additional classrooms, studios, and all that. But like since I came on board, I know for a fact that, in fact, the major problem I'd faced had been the issue of recruiting academic staff. Okay. There have been a lot of restrictions. Were not related to the funding, but I mean there is light at the end of the tunnel. Just recently, the federal government, let's just say federal government, since it is a federal institution, they told us that we can employ 160 additional academic staff. Some of them were even interviewed before, they had given seminar, but for us to give them the employment, it had been an issue because of the problem in paying them salaries. So we are really, it's a big relief for me. So if we're able to bring in 160 or almost 200 new academic staff into this system, remember we had about 1,500. Of course, some are retiring. In fact, like this year now, from the information available to me, 15 of our professors will be retiring. Some have already retired. So from between January this year and December 31st, 15 professors will have retired. So you need to replace them. So if a professor is retiring, it's been nice for you to look for 3 new blood who have just completed their PhD to replace them in their various departments, so that you can have a sustainable system. So we are happy that things are beginning to improve, at least in terms of the human capital. Because if you have all the best the laboratory facilities, computing facilities, if there are no human beings to even provide the lead for the students, then there will still be a major gap.
So higher education, we all know, is very important to the development of every country, continent, and the globe as well. As an astute academic and as a Vice Chancellor of a premier university, what are the key interventions that you think African higher education needs?
Yeah, well, but, you know, if for African universities to be able to compete favorably with the rest of the world, or to build world-class university, I mean, in summary, you know, the human capital is very important in terms of faculty and students. So you'll be able to bring foreign faculty to come here, even if it is only for a month or 2 months, to teach a module and all that. Then to internationalize, it's not good to have a University of Ibadan where all the foreign faculty we have here probably less than 10. I think it's not good enough. And not unrelated to the second issue of funding. So if you are able to pay people very well, they can come from all over the world, and you make the environment conducive for them in terms of accommodation, international house and hostels and all that. Power supply, I mean, things that have been taken for granted elsewhere should not be the thing that we are running after 24 hours of the day. And then also the governance, autonomy. I mean, because, I mean, like just yesterday, I got the curriculum vitae of a gentleman. I've never met him before. Okay. Well, I mean, I've seen him, but I don't know him. He had the first class from University of Ibadan, Electrical and Electronics Engineering in 2011. Then he went to University of Manchester to do his master's, and his PhD also in University of Manchester. He applied here to get for a lecturer grade 2, lecturer grade 1 position. I just wrote on the paper that I give him temporary appointment. Because if you don't, I mean, it's into robotics, artificial intelligence, and all that. So I think these are the kind of people, I've never met him. So a vice chancellor should have that kind of power.
Vision and power.
It's not everybody that we have a first class. I myself didn't have first class anyway. I had the second class up here. So, but I know this is a very rare individual. So we don't even have to start training him for his PhD. He already has a PhD from University of Manchester, both masters and PhD. So I'm just giving that to as an example. So we should be able to, and just last year too, I received the CV of a lady who had first class from the University of Lagos in geography. Then went to the UK for masters and PhD. She applied here for a lectureship job. I just wrote on it that we should employ her. I mean, she has to satisfy all that condition, maybe give a seminar and all that. Because if you are not careful in recruiting people, then you are stuck with the person till 70 years. He or she can become a professor. Becoming a professor is the least of the problem. But if you have people who are very good, you have to go out of your way to break all the rules, so to speak, to bring them in. Otherwise, they go to the private sector, or they even emigrate. So those are some of the issues.
Thank you so much for speaking to us.
It's my pleasure.
Great.
Well done.
We spent time with Professor Abel Idowu Olayinka, and he is the Vice Chancellor of the University of Ibadan here in Nigeria, and it is Nigeria's premier university. Thank you for watching. My name has always been Kwesi Sam.